You're listening to Making Money Online with Lisa Johnson, the podcast that tells you what it really takes to build a business and the simple steps to get you there. I'm determined to share with you the reality of easy, simple business marketing tips to make passive income so that you can start making money online. Making Money Online is sponsored by Nicola J. Rowley PR, helping entrepreneurs and brands get visible through strategic storytelling. If you're serious about being seen and impacting the lives of others, harnessing the power of PR is the best way to grow and scale your business. Visit njrpr.com for more details and read Nicola's best-selling book, The Power of PR. Hello, and welcome to this week's podcast. Now, lots of my listeners on here are parents. And one of the things that always gets said to me is, how do you do it when you're parenting twins? How do you have this business where you're making multi-millions when you're parenting twins all the time? And obviously they know I've got Sam, and Sam does definitely help out a lot. But when I first started my business, it was just me and these toddler twins. And it was very busy, and it was a bit of a juggle. And so many people asked me about this. I thought I would bring somebody on who is an actual expert at this, rather than just hearing from me and my sometimes not very adept juggling. So I'm here with Hannah Love. Hannah is a pediatric nurse, sleep and parenting expert. I know lots of people actually who have used Hannah, especially in the sleep side of things, like get my kid to sleep. So I'm excited to have you here, Hannah. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
No worries. I want to talk about, like, you're really good at what you do now. And most of the time when we're good at something, it's because we've had to be. So tell me about, I know that you kind of started being able to organize a home and almost parent yourself really early on. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah, so my mum went away to study osteopathy when I was about 12 years old. And me and my younger sister basically learned to run the household. At first, it was a bit of catastrophe and washing up didn't get done, and we were eating our cornflakes out of saucepans in the morning. But we soon learned that if we wanted to have our school uniform and if we wanted to have a decent meal in the evening, then that's something that we did. And so by the time I left school at 15, I was pretty good at doing the day-to-day running of a household, which of course when I started nannying was such a gift for the parents that I nannied for, because that's exactly what they needed from me.
It's so funny because I had a near identical experience. Like, my mum left our household to go live somewhere else when I was 11. And so I had a younger sister who was 10. I had an older brother who was in and out, not really ever there. And my dad worked all hours in about 3 different jobs because we lived in council housing and he needed to pay for us to eat. And so basically me and Marie just took over, and like you very quickly learned that if you don't, no one's going to do it for you. And so we took over, and I used to be the one that sort of cleaned up and kept everything tidy. Marie did the cooking at 10. And I still don't cook now because she cooked everything when we were growing up. But it does make you more self-sufficient. And when I had the twins, although it was a massive shock to the system, I was really good at organizing life, as you probably are. And so I very quickly was able to put in a routine for the twins that allowed me to have sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started nannying in my 20s, the families that I worked for, I wasn't actually a qualified nanny. I was a qualified nurse at the time. I went away to university and studied pediatric nursing, and then I fell into an amazing nanny position in my early 20s for professional golfers, and was kind of taken around the world on private jets and first class with their babies. But they employed me because they felt the babies were safe in my care, because I was a pediatric nurse, obviously, but also because I wasn't a traditional nanny in the sense that I would only do stuff for the children. I mean, I had the dinner on the table for the whole family. I would book their flight tickets. I would organise a household. I'd do the ironing when the dad came back from golfing. And so I kind of mucked in and did it. And that was just what was natural to me. So I got passed around about 8 different golfers in my 20s, which was amazing, such an amazing experience, but then set me up for when I had my children. When I had my first child, Oliver, I was 30, and I was still nannying at that point. And when I had him, I'd got so good at juggling babies and households and works that none of that was new to me. And I actually set up my first business, Yummy Baby Group, when Oliver was in the same month that Oliver was born, just because I kind of realised that I had this skill that I could hand over to other families. There was no such thing as a sleep specialist at the time, and I was working for the National Nutrition Clinic as a nutritional therapist, because I'd studied nutrition as well, and I'd come across lots of different families, and all they wanted to talk about was sleep. And so I set up my business.
The only thing we talk about, isn't it, when we first have a baby? Like, that's the bit that's the shock to the system, because there's nothing like the kind of tiredness in that first year.
Absolutely not. And I was seeing parents for first aid training sessions, for weaning classes, for nutritional consultations. And as soon as I said that I'd been a nanny for years, all they wanted to talk about was sleep. It was like everything else they'd come to me went out of that window, and they were like, right, so how do I get some sleep? And that's how my first business was formed. It was originally called Yummy Nutrition, but nobody wanted to talk about nutrition, so then it ended up being called Yummy Baby Group. So I could encompass the sleep in there. And then for the next 14 years, I juggled building up my business alongside having 2 other children. We built a house. I've constantly
juggled it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of now I've kind of found my niche, as it were, in helping busy business mums and working mums and just mums really that want to continue doing what they're passionate about. It doesn't have to be work. If it's traveling, if it's going out and enjoying yourself, if it's going to festivals, whatever it is that makes you happy, I help them to manage that while having a baby, as well as having a baby as well.
Because I think people think that if you have a baby, your whole life is over as you knew it. And that, that's it, everything changes. And actually, it did change for me, but in a good way, because I left the job I was doing. But I never stopped working the whole time. So from when they were 4 months old is when I sort of started to get back into things. And I know people now that have businesses, they have a baby, and 2 weeks later, I can see them online doing stuff. And I think, how are you doing it?
Yeah, I got told off for that by my husband, actually, because I was working on the way down to theatre. I had a planned C-section with my second 2, and he caught me on my phone. I took it for photos, and he caught me answering an email on the way down to theatre, and he was like, "You better not be working." I was like, "Sorry." And then I answered a call in the car 24 hours later from a mum who needed help with her baby's sleep. And in fact, I ended up taking her on a 6-week program, and towards the end of the program she heard my baby crying in the background. She said, "Oh, have you got somebody over?" I said, "Oh no, that's my baby." She said, "How old are they?" And I said, 6 weeks. She was like, "You are joking. I've been calling you up for my 18-month-old asking at 3 o'clock in the morning for sleep advice, and you've got a newborn." I was like, "Well, anyway, so it's fine."
So all of these people asking, how do I juggle things? Like, I've got a baby, a much wanted baby, and now I've realized that work is going to be different, and that how am I supposed to do things in the day? Whereas I used to have so much time. People never realize how much time they've got until they have kids, and then they realize how much time they had. How do they juggle it? What is the first step that they can take to kind of get back to some semblance of normality?
I think the biggest tip that I can give is to work towards your baby being able to sleep well and independently. And there's lots of families that want to co-sleep and contact nap, and all of that is absolutely fine. But if you're a busy mum that has a business to run or wants to get on with other things, and having a baby sleeping on you the whole time just isn't practical. Going up to bed with them at the same time as them and having to lie with them all evening isn't practical. Whereas if you have a baby that can go into their cot when they're tired and go to sleep by themselves, you've got a more predictable day. It's never going to be completely predictable. And that's another one of my massive things, is being realistic.
Yeah.
You've got a little bit more predictable day, so you know that your baby's roughly going to sleep between these hours, and when they're tired you can lay them down and walk away. It gives you an extra half an hour on top of their actual nap time because they go to sleep in their cot. And then you've also got the evenings, your baby's going to be asleep, and you just take them upstairs and put them in bed. So that would be one of my top tips for somebody that needs to have the time to do. And my second one, which I am terrible at, is asking for help and accepting the help that you're offered as well.
I was really bad at that. When I had the twins, I was like, no, I can do it. I can make this happen. In the first two and a half months, I was a zombie because I was trying to do it all by myself, and I didn't really have much help at all. And obviously people used to say to me that thing where they say, like, sleep when the babies sleep, which is all great, well and good. But when you've got twins, they sleep at completely different times. So there's no there's no time to do it. It was only when, and I know this is like, people won't like this, but this is what I did. I found Gina Ford.
Okay.
And I know that she has a sort of, people either love her or hate her, but I was at the end of my tether and I was like, I need them to sleep at the same time. I need them to sleep at normal times so that I can actually get sleep myself and some semblance of normality back. And I followed it to the letter, and they, like, it literally took 7 days. And then after the 7 days, they were 3 months old, and they have slept through forever since then. And they're really good. They go to bed themselves. Like, they've always been like that. Even at 3 or 4, they would say, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. And so they would do it, and they would wake up at the same time, and I would wake them up if I had to wake them up, because it was the time that they should be up. And I would always do that. Now, every time they went through any kind of growth spurt or something like that, it would all go wrong for about 2 weeks, and I'd have to do it again. But in the main, it worked quite well for me. But lots of people have this idea, and they believe that it's mean to do that, to kind of train a baby to sleep. And actually, if they are murmuring or crying, you should go straight to them and pick them up. And I've seen that school of thought coming even more recently. What's your advice around that?
So I think that when you had the twins, there was so little information around. I mean, Gina Ford was the book to go to for sleep training. And my opinion with lots of things parenting is there is 2 extremes. There's the attachment parenting, and then there's Gina Ford on the other end of the scale. I come somewhere in the middle. So I think that it's really important for babies to have the skill of independent sleep. But I'm also a gentle parent. So I guide parents through a number of stages to get there. Gina Ford, you're basically going from the top floor to the ground floor out of the window, whereas I take the stairs to get down. You're going to reach the same point. You're going to get a baby that sleeps independently. You can put them down in their cot, walk out the room. But I show parents how to do that in a gradual way. So 1, you can do it in any age baby. You don't need to wait until they're 6 months, because you shouldn't do controlled crying until 6 months. And I'm not sitting there saying that you shouldn't do controlled crying. It works brilliantly for a lot of babies, but a lot of parents don't want to just walk out the room.
And that's fair. Like, it's how you feel emotionally, isn't it?
Exactly. And there's different personalities of babies as well. Some babies, you'll leave them to cry out, like you said, and they adapt in a few days, and it's working brilliantly. You get some more, the parents call them all lovely names, strong-willed, or like a lot worse names than that, but their babies have just got this personality where they're not going to give in, and they leave them to cry for hours on end, and it just doesn't work. And if you've got that kind of personality baby that's strong-willed, they know their own mind, then controlled crying is just going to be horrendous for both of you. So there is a gentle, gradual way where you can slowly adapt through the stages to get to the same end point. It takes a little bit longer, but you can get to the point where your baby's sleeping independently without needing to leave them to cry it out.
Which is amazing. And I have some clients they haven't got babies anymore. They've got 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and they're needing to, put them in bed 15 times, 20 times, sit up there with them. Their whole evening is gone. And my evening was always this bit. The only time I had to work was my evenings, because I had a full-time job. So the only time to work on my business was that. And when they tell me, I'm like, how are you coping with that? How are you getting anything done? And they're like, this, I have to choose my battles, and it's the only way. Yeah. Can you still kind of help people who have children of that age to get them to get into a better routine, or is it sort of too late?
No, it's never too late. I think that there's 2 things. One, a lot of parents say, oh, it's developmental, and they'll grow out of it. And I always say to those parents that have got smaller babies, actually, I've worked with 5, 6, 7-year-olds that still need their parents to sit in the room in order to go to sleep, are still fighting going to bed at bedtime. And so it isn't normally something that your baby will naturally grow out of or fall into. But no, absolutely, it's never too late. You can also, and I think with older children as well, kind of over the age of 2, 2.5, it makes it harder in some ways, because they've got these set habits that you've got to undo, but it does make it easier in some ways, because you can talk to them, you can have a conversation about it, you can tell them what's going to happen. And the most important thing once they get to that age is to prepare them for the change. Lots of parents are like, right, tonight we're going to do this, and they try to change it and everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
You sit down, you make the preparation, you talk them through it. You can use like worksheets that the baby can go through, toddler can go through, and like see what's going to happen, because they like predictability. You can use role play to kind of like go through the bedtime routine away from bedtime, so it doesn't seem so frightening when you come to bedtime. So there's lots of things you can do for older children in order to change what they're doing to go to bed.
That's so good. And then when you have kids and you're trying to juggle work, we often see, I'm guilty of this too, like I'll be on a live and my kids will be running around in the background and I'll be like, here I am trying to be professional, but they always seem to need you at the time that you're about to do a live or go on with a client. How do you kind of juggle it? Like with you've got kids and you juggle it really well. Do you have like structures in place or systems in place where is it all just about communication with the child?
Yeah, I think that if I always say to families that you have to choose what's important for your family. So when I've been working in the past with families one-to-one in the first consultation, I'll say, what's important to you? So my family, we love eating out. So it's really important that my children would sit in a high chair when we go out for dinner. Also for me, because I was taking calls from parents, it was really important that my children didn't interrupt me when I was on a phone call, unless it was important. And so they were two things that from when they were really tiny, I put in things to make sure that they knew those two things were acceptable. And you can do that. I mean, you don't want to be putting in lots and lots of rules from when they're absolutely tiny, but you can teach them this is important for mummy and this is important for the family, and you can put those rules in from early on. I think since the pandemic, people have become so much more understanding of children running in when you're on a live or interrupting a phone call when you're on the phone. So that's made my job a much easier. I've always worked online and never worked like face to face really. So that's made my job much easier. But there are things that you can do in order to encourage them to behave at those points. Like, for example, if you're talking about being on the phone, for example, a lot of parents, and I hear them do this when I'm on the end of the phone, the child comes up and interrupts and they're like, I'm just on the phone, mum is on the phone, don't worry, we'll do this. And then they come back and then they interrupt again, and they're constantly giving them the attention when they're doing the thing that they don't want them to do, which of course they're not going to then stop doing it. So I say, if you want a little bit of advice right now, okay, doing that, just hold them off just for 1 second, carry on talking to me, and when they stop talking, then give them the attention and say, what is it that you want from mummy? Because then they learn that if they're quiet when you're on the phone, they get the attention, rather than when they're nagging you.
It's about training, isn't it? It's like making sure they know the parameters of what you want them to do. Let's just talk a little bit about the guilt. You call it mum guilt, but actually I think it happens to dads too. This guilt of, when you're working, you constantly feel like you're not spending enough time with the kids when you're working. And then when you're not working and you're with the kids, you're feeling like you should really be working. And there's so many people that say, they go through their whole working life feeling guilty about things. I've never had that. I've always kind of gone, I can see the bigger picture. I'm doing it for them. Like we don't have, and I say to them, when they're like, I have had one of them say to me quite a lot, you're always on the phone, mummy, you're always looking at your phone, especially like if we're on holiday and we're on sunbeds, they're playing in the pool. As soon as they see me on the phone, they're at me like, you're on the phone, thought you weren't going to work, and that kind of thing. And I've had to teach them that I'm on the phone so that we can be there on that holiday. The phone is my work, whereas because they're used to seeing me at home every day because I work from home, it doesn't mean I'm not at work. Like other people's parents go to work and they see them less, but I still have to do a job. And so I've never really felt that guilt, but lots of people do, don't they? They feel like they can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think no matter what parent you are, you're always going to have that guilt. I knew when I had Oliver that I didn't want to, I was a trained nurse, but I knew that I didn't want to be nursing because I didn't want to be doing long shifts and away for the children. I had a nanny job for 2 years when he was a baby that he came with me to work as I built up in the first stages of my business. And then since then, I haven't needed any childcare. I've been there to pick them up from school every day. I've been to all of their school plays, those kind of things. Yeah, I still have mum guilt because, as you say, like you are, I haven't had a holiday when I'm not there working. I've had to take my laptop with me. I've had calls on Christmas Day from parents that are stressed because their baby's not settling at a house. And so I still get that mum guilt, even though I've been there. And then you have other mums that are doing their 9 to 5. And when they're at home and they're not working at all. And I know they have mum guilt because they're not there to pick them up from school. Yeah. So it's a real thing for anyone. And I think you just got to be at peace with what you've chosen, I think.
Yeah, and I think that is it. you have to be at peace with it. And maybe, people always say, you can have everything. I think you can have everything, but I think you will always feel like you should be doing something better. And people have such opinions on the whole working parents thing anyway. Like, one of the first times that I never go to the school to take my kids. It's the environment I feel most uncomfortable in the world. You can put me on stage in front of 700 people and I'll be very happy. You put me in a school gate with some mums hanging around and I feel very uncomfortable. But the one time that I did go, someone actually said to me, one of the mums said to me, "Oh, it must be so hard. You're always traveling around the world, aren't you? In these exotic places. It must be so hard leaving the children all the time when you're doing that." And it was such a dig. And I was like, no, I feel really good about it. And I get to take them around the world with me. And, they're at home with their stepdad who they love and who is taking care of them. So actually, I feel good about it. How's your life going? And you have to be like that. You have to know that whatever choice you've made, whether you're a stay-at-home mum, who also, they get digs from people because they're staying at home, what are they doing all day and all that kind of thing, when we know that is a full-time job. So it doesn't matter what you do, there's always going to be judgment on how you parent.
Oh, absolutely. There's judgments on all areas of parenting. And what I was saying earlier about kind of whether you're a chat-truant parent or whether you're leaving your baby to cry, whether you're doing baby-led weaning or whether you're doing puree weaning, or how old are your children? Are they still in nappies? Like, every single stage of parenting comes along with judgment. Oh, my baby was potty trained by 2.5. Are they still in nappies? Oh, your baby's still got a dummy to go to sleep. It's like every single stage. It's almost like a competition. And I think it's even worse if you've got a group of mums, like an NCT group. Over the years, when I've started working with parents and they're in an NCT group, and one of the mums will approach me, said, "All of my NCT group, they're all sleeping through the night. They have been for weeks, and my baby's not sleeping through, is waking up 10 times a night." And I was like, I guarantee that your NCT group are not sleeping through the night. I hear this all the time. And within 2 weeks, when their baby starts sleeping through and they're there at NCT coffee and the baby's asleep in the pram, like, how on earth did you do that? And they all ask my number, and before I know it, I'm seeing all of the NCT group. And actually, it's just because they've been kind of bending the truth a little bit, how good their little baby is sleeping.
It's so funny because it's not a competition, and it doesn't mean anything that things happen at different stages. I remember being in a Costa Coffee when the boys were about, I don't know, 6 weeks old, maybe 2 months old, and I was on my own then. And so I had them in this double pram, and they both woke up at the same time and both started screeching at the same time. And so I was trying to feed one while trying to keep the other in the pram and put a bottle in his mouth as well. And the looks that I got, this woman came over and tutted at me because they were crying. And I said, "Do you want to hold a bottle? That will stop them crying if you want to come help." And I think I was quite bolshy, so I was, I really didn't care what people thought of me. But I've seen people in that situation, when one of their toddlers is having a tantrum and people are tutting at them or walking past, and it drives me crazy. And I often just go and help and say, "Hey, do you want any help?" Because I know what it's like. But the judgment from people is, I think, the hardest thing as a mum.
Absolutely. I remember when Oliver was about 10 months old, and going back to this, it was really important for us to have him sitting at the table eating dinners nicely. And I remember it vividly, we went to this really nice Chinese restaurant, and before the dinner even arrived, Oliver decides to throw all of his toys off of the table and start screaming. And Dad was like, "Should I take him out?" I was like, "No, because if you do that once, every single time we sit down to dinner, he's going to want to go out, see the fish, walk around, go outside." So I just turned the high chair around and carried on talking to Daryl, and he was like this, trying to look around the side. And then I said, "Are you ready to come and sit back with us again?" And he was like, and then moved him back, gave him a prawn cracker, and he sat there happily. And there was this woman opposite me, she goes, "Oh my goodness, how did you do that?" And I said to other people, she goes, "Oh, I couldn't possibly do that." Everybody would look at me, and I was like, "No, when it works, people will think the opposite and will be like, actually, I see why you're doing it."
Yeah, but we hate it when we're looked at, don't we? So you can see why people do it. Last question I've got for you is on screen. So we're often, when we're out and about, if we're in a restaurant and we just want to have an adult conversation, I will give the twins their screen for, when they were little, I'd probably give it to them for 20 minutes, 15 minutes. But now I will give it to them for half an hour to an hour if I need to. What are your thoughts on it? Like, I get told that you shouldn't be giving kids screens all the time and this kind of thing. I don't do it a lot, but I do it.
I was writing in an article the other day about the differences between the first, second, and third child, and with my first, I was like, no screens, no iPad. He didn't have one. My second and third child obviously had them before they were 4, and our phones way before that as well. I think I'm really quite adamant that once a meal comes out, especially if we're sitting with family, that they sit there and they eat the meal and
definitely,
and they don't have them at the table. And I wouldn't have the TV on if we're all sitting around having a meal. But absolutely, I mean, if you're in a situation where you're going out for a long lunch with family and everybody's having a few glasses of wine, I don't expect the children to sit there for an hour and a half without screens and join in an adult conversation.
Yeah, it's hard for them, isn't it? I had someone walk past and went, oh, kids, they've always got screens these days. And I'm like, if I didn't give them a screen, you'd be moaning that they're making noise, and I've given them a screen, you're still moaning. So don't sort of care what you think. But yeah, I think so much of being a parent is being resilient and being really confident about your choices and being assertive in the way you want to do things, no matter what anyone else thinks.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm teaching parents every single day, is to be confident in what you're doing. Like, a lot of the time, parents are questioning themselves because of reading so many different things out there. They don't know what's right from wrong. It's like, actually, you know what you need to do, and they're like, this isn't rocket science, is it? This is common sense. This is what I want to do. And it's just giving them the confidence in order to follow that path.
Yeah, so true. Thank you so much for being here and for having this chat with me. I could chat to you about like the parenting thing all day because there's so many things. But if somebody is really struggling to juggle right now, you know, parenting, or maybe they're pregnant and they're about to have a baby and they're worried about how that's going to affect what they do on a day-to-day basis, where is the best place for someone to come and find you?
You can find me I've got a Facebook community with 7,000 parents, which has got free information for everyone in there. And that's Yummy Baby Group Sleep Well with Hannah. Or you can find me on Instagram, Sleep Well with Hannah, but it's got an underscore in between each word.
Perfect. We'll put those links in the show notes as well, so you can go straight there. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, guys. You know, however you're feeling, whether you're a parent that is new or a parent that has been a parent for some time, and you're feeling that juggle and you're feeling that judgment, I want you to know that everyone goes through the same thing. Everyone feels the same thing, and you're never alone with this. Anyone that's a parent will tell you that. I will be back next week for some more advice on how to make money online. But whatever you're doing for the rest of today, have a great one, and I will speak to you soon.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you for listening to Making Money Online with Lisa Johnson. If you'd like to get hold of my guide to launching, go to lisajohnson.com/launch and let's get you making money online.